Welcome back to the Mayhem Performance Podcast. This week, it's just me and Jake Foster, and we're going to give you 6 quick tips for recovery protocols in the sport of CrossFit. And we're going to keep this as simple as possible. Look, the reality is that if you go on Instagram or any social media, you're going to see 1,000 different things that promise you a PR snatch, or that you're going to recover better, or you're going to get much stronger or more enduring. But the truth is that there are some simple steps that you can take as an athlete to make sure you're dialing in your recovery and getting the most out of your training. So Jake, do you want to kick us off with number 1?
Yeah. Again, just like Brandon said, just real quick too, to add to that is I get overwhelmed with, as a coach and, recreational athlete myself. You watch the Andrew Huberman podcast, which I don't anymore because of how overwhelming it is. And then I don't know, man, there's like red light therapy, cold exposure, sauna, different tools that you can use,
all kinds of supplements,
breathing. Yeah. I mean, and I've worked with naturopathic doctors in the past, and I mean, at one point I was taking 16 pills with every meal that I was eating, and I was having to like breathe it multiple times throughout the day, and it was incredibly overwhelming. So to keep it simple, we got to give credit first to Jake Nomchev, who teaches the course in our mentorship program on lifestyle protocols. And he's really the one who distilled this down into, here's the essential ones that you really want to focus on, and then the non-essentials. And number 1, we would always recommend our athletes to start living with rhythm and having a routine. So I mean, that's as simple as it sounds, right? It's like having a daily schedule, which is going to be kind of the bedrock of everything that you do, right?
Yeah. I mean, we just did a podcast with Jake Locker on time management and how do we make sure that we're prioritizing all the things that matter most in life and then making the most out of our training. And the number 1 thing you can do is have systems in place. That's the bedrock foundation to make sure that when you get into training, that you can focus on where your feet are on the training floor and get the most out of it. I think the tendency for most people is like, they just kind of randomly put training wherever it fits in the day. They're super busy. They run in, they don't warm up, they don't cool down. And then they look back after 2 or 3 weeks and they didn't really get much out of training. Yeah. And this seems super simple. All of these are simple things that people I think fail at every day, but by building in routines, this is when I'm training, and when I'm in there, those 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 2 hours, all I'm focused on is being a better athlete, pursuing excellence in my training time.
Not just training, but obviously everybody hears this one all the time, sleep, right? Yeah. Like what is the number 1 sleep advice? It was Matthew Walker, the guy who wrote the book, Why We Sleep. And he was asked all the time, if you could give one bit of advice on how to improve sleep quality, he would say, go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, right? Circadian rhythm or circadian biology, this is how God designed us, right? Also nutrition too, as well, right?
Well, now you're getting all the other points in.
I know, but you have to real quick. So but nutrition would be, you have hormones, leptin and ghrelin, which regulate satiety and hunger. I always get the two confused. But those are, especially for athletes who during intense periods of training or high volume periods of training where they're not as hungry, one simple tool is to eat around the same time each day and train around the same time each day so that you can regulate those hunger cues so your body can become more accustomed to eating at the same time, and you can ensure you're getting enough calories in.
Yeah. So I think that, it seems like a broad topic, but just like one practical takeaway, build in some systems. What we say is write down all your priorities throughout the day and then have some kind of calendar that you build out. And I know that seems like, oh, it's a lot of extra work, but by doing that, you can create these habits and routines that we're talking about. So I use an app called Todoist to do this for me.
I didn't know you use that.
Yeah. And so basically air high five. Yeah. I put in my day, right? So like I know when I'm training, I know when I'm doing my calls, I know when I'm programming, I know when I have time with my family, and that's all built out. Now, do I get off of that sometimes? Sure. Everyone's going to, especially when you travel, or like we changed the podcast time today. And so that changes it, but the routines stay the same. And I know exactly what I have going on that day. It seems simple, but by doing that has freed me up that when I'm in the gym, I can really get after it.
Here's a little research real quick, and we'll jump to the second point. Jake Nomchev had this. He said a 2019 study found that individuals with consistent daily schedules had 15 to 20% lower baseline cortisol levels compared to those with irregular routines, reducing stress-related health risks.
Yeah.
That's incredible. 15 to 20% lower baseline cortisol levels, your body's primary stress hormone, just from having a consistent schedule or routine each day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Number 2, you want to jump in?
That kind of leads in. You already mentioned sleep, but that would be number 2. And speaking of Andrew Huberman, he's talked about this a lot, and he has some really good research. He has this like meta-analysis on his website. So I'd encourage you guys to go there, or just like go and Google it. Look at all the research on sleep and how important it is for us. I think that, again, being simple, but the simple stuff's often overlooked, where it's like, I'm busy, I've got to do something at night, I want to watch that show, now I'm hooked and I watch 3 shows and it's 1 a.m. I got to get up at 6 a.m. You're really shooting yourself in the foot if you want to see progress in your training.
Yeah, I think the second, it's like sleep is always part A, part B. Part A is volume or total time asleep, and then B is quality of your sleep too. And so obviously there's a ton of resources out there about improving the sleep quality, like cooling the temperature down, maybe wearing night blockers. That would made the hugest difference for me. I was the guy who would wake up in the middle of the night. If there was one little light on in the corner of the room, I would fixate on it, and all of a sudden my brain's going 100 miles an hour. So sleep mask was a huge difference for me. But finding your rhythm in your sleep, right, in terms of the things that will help you improve the quality. And then let me give one like little advice here. A lot of the people we talk to, competitive athletes, or more type A, I don't know what, your Enneagram 3 or something like that, right? They can obsess over some of these things. Sleep is one area. Let me give a little quick note. And I've fallen into this trap. If you obsess and you get type A about your sleep quality, that can be every bit as dangerous as not focusing on it at all. Because now you start to produce, maybe in some cases, like sleep anxiety. So just be careful. That's all I would say about that.
Yeah.
So,
I want to give some practical takeaways for each of these. So just like, and Jake, you already mentioned some of these, but like super simple routines. Get off your phone, get off a screen at least 60 to 90 minutes before you go to bed. Most of us don't do that, but it's a really good way to go ahead and wind down, get into a parasympathetic state. I like some kind of routine where either I'm spending time with a family, I'm praying, I'm reading my Bible, even like a regular book that's not like super intense is a good way to calm yourself down. Things like progressive muscle relaxation can be a really good way. Just lay in your bed. There's routines on YouTube that you could find to calm yourself down before you go to sleep. And then Jake mentioned these, but cooling the temperature in your room, that 65 to 68 range is actually, there's some good research on that. I know that's like, wow, that's way too cold, but that's a good thing to do. And then really the rule of thumb should be like, if you put your hand out 6 to 8 inches from your face and you can see your hand, is probably too bright in the room. So darken it or wear a sleep mask. Like you said, Jake, that's going to help you sleep better. And if you wake up, then you can fall back asleep, because as everyone knows, like if someone came in and turned the light on and turned it back off, it's like, whoa, and it's hard to fall back asleep.
This is a good segue into the third essential recovery protocol, but stop drinking liquid until the moment you go to bed. Dude, I can't tell you.
I do that sometimes.
How many athletes I talk to that like on our intake form will score their sleep quality low. And I always ask, well, why? And they're like, I'm waking up to pee 3 times a night.
Yeah, I need a catheter when I sleep.
Yeah, and there could be some other underlying like physiological issues going on that's causing that. But most of the time it's the low hanging fruit. Like I just talked to an athlete the other day that was like, yeah, I drink like 30 ounces of water right before I go to bed. Like, let's stop doing that.
You're definitely going to wake up and pee.
That's probably a problem.
If you don't wake up, that's impressive.
Exactly. But good segue into number 3, which would be hydration. Yeah. I did a whole toolkit on this about hydrating effectively, peri-workout or around your training session, like pre, intra, and post. But I mean, needless to say, like nothing's going to function properly without proper hydration. What are some tools? Man, we could go all over the place on this too. If you want me to give some kind of general recommendations.
Yeah, I think just like maybe 1 or 2, because you did a really good job in the toolkit on this, but like 1 or 2 things that they can take away. Yeah,
I think some of the rules of thumb you'll hear, and they're rules of thumb for a reason, like drink half your body weight in ounces of water each day, or up to 60% of your body weight in ounces of water each day. I think those are a good starting point. I think the WUT method, the WUT, is actually a really good practical framework to determine every day to make sure that you're you're hydrating well. W stands for weight. So if you wake up each day and your body weight has dropped by more than 1%, let's assume you're not in a cut or you didn't, drop carbohydrates overnight or something like that. Just like you're eating normal maintenance calories, normal nutrition each day, that could be a sign that you might be possibly dehydrated when you're waking up. The U stands for urine, right? So just looking at your urine color, there's a bunch of, like, you just Google proper urine color, right? It should be like like the pale yellow, right? And then thirst is a third one. T stands for thirst, which is really simple. If you're feeling thirsty, you'll hear this a lot. It's likely that you're already dehydrated. Now, WUT, if you have 2 out of 3 of those, your weight is off, your urine color is off, or you're thirsty, any 2 out of the 3, it means you're more than likely already dehydrated. if 1 out of 3 is off, it's like maybe, right? You might want to consider hydrating better. But 2 out of 3 is kind of like the rule of thumb there. And I think that that's just such a simple guideline for athletes to follow each day. Maybe you start with like the 50 to 60% of ounces in body weight, but then you use the what method to kind of, customize that to what you need each day.
That's really good. The last point I say is most people, our fourth point is going to be nutrition, which I'll kick off in a second, but most people think about nutrition. They don't think about hydration. Yeah. So then they kind of like skip out on making sure they're hydrated and they're eating enough, but that hydration, can impact your training just as much.
And the goal again with hydration is fluid balance. It's not just more water.
Yeah.
Again, the athlete I talked to the other day, same idea, their body weight, I don't remember exactly what it was, maybe something around 150 pounds, and they're drinking 200 ounces of water a day. It's like, and they're thirsty all the time. That's actually a potential sign that you're or you're drinking too much water in relation to electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium, et cetera. So just remember, hydration is not just more water. It's fluid balance, which you get from electrolytes plus water. And you can throw that out of balance either way, but simple frameworks like the what method will help you determine that.
So the fourth one is nutrition. I know this is your favorite topic, so I'll let you go ahead. I'll let you go ahead and just riff on it. I'll be quiet for 2 minutes.
Heck, do we even have to? I guess I should have thought a little bit like, what is the simplest way I can distill nutrition? Actually, I did this the other day because I was thinking about putting like a little bit of a lead magnet together for this. But I would say number one is just make sure energy balance is there. So you're consuming the appropriate amount of calories for your goal.
Yeah.
And you can't just say eat enough food, because in some cases, some athletes in the off season in particular may need to cut. They might need to be in a caloric deficit, right? Some athletes in preparation for competition might want to say the same, be it caloric maintenance or caloric surplus. So it's like, make sure that you're eating the appropriate amount of calories. That would be number one in relation to your goal. And then the time of the season that you're in. And then number two, make sure that your macronutrients are aligned with that caloric intake. We did a whole podcast on how, bodybuilding nutrition can throw off performance nutrition in CrossFit. So it'd be like, make sure you're getting enough carbohydrates, you're not overdoing it on protein, and you're not forgetting about fats. That's the simplest way that I could put it. And then three would be, make sure you're actually taking a peek at your micronutrients. If you track your food using a software like Chronometer, is a great software to take a look at all of your micronutrients, and it'll actually show you the percentage breakdown that you need in relation to your total caloric intake to make sure that you're hitting some of those baselines. If you're not, we say start with whole foods first, right? And then in some cases you may need to supplement, right? Like a multivitamin might cover all your bases if you need to. Those would be the top three. I mean, you could get into other stuff like supplementation, all these sorts of things, but it'd be like energy balance, calories, macros, micros.
Dialing that in is the most important thing before
100%.
You layer anything on top of that. Yeah. So the fifth one is relationships. And this is another one where it seems so simple, but I feel like we kind of take it for granted. And everyone has experienced this. If you have a spouse, you get in a fight with your spouse or your significant other, or you have a work relationship that's gone sour and you go and try to train and that training session does not go well. So Jake, do you want to kind of speak to this a little bit?
Yeah, I wanted to share this again from Jake Nomchev. Like he shared this in our mentorship group. There was a Harvard study of adult development. It was from 1938 and it's actually still ongoing. It's the longest running longitudinal study on human happiness. It tracked over 700 men since 1938. And they were looking at factors contributing to health and well-being. And here's what it found: that strong, warm relationships with family, friends, or partners were the strongest predictors of long-term health, happiness, and longevity, surpassing factors like wealth or physical fitness. Individuals with high quality relationships had lower rates of chronic disease and better mental health outcomes. Socially connected individuals live longer with relationship quality, so on and so forth. So I thought that was pretty neat. It's like, how do you reduce stress? Because that's really, recovery is reducing what we call allostatic load, the total amount of stress in your life. You use a cup analogy, which is always really great, right? Like, how do we get that cup a little bit lower so that we can pour more training stress on top and then adapt to it appropriately? Having healthy relationships, laughter, friendships, even, sexual life with your spouse, all these things will help reduce that overall allostatic load so that we can train harder and then recover from it.
100%.
Simplest way of putting it.
Yeah. And I think everyone sees this too in the CrossFit space. Those that have really good support systems just seem happier. They train harder. They recover faster. Like it's just an obvious thing that maybe we kind of bypass sometimes, but it is extremely important to have those support systems.
Sean shared this too. Like, I don't know, one of our previous camps that he came to was like, hugging someone for at least like 30 seconds led to a X percentage increase in serotonin levels in the brain. It was pretty wild. I think the simplest way of putting it is like God designed us for relationship and community. If you live outside of a relationship and community, you're going to be less fit because you can't recover as well.
Yeah.
Period.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then the last one is prayer and thanksgiving. I think I use the term gratitude often when talking about this, but I think that that's been one of the key kind of like bedrocks for me over the last couple of years is having a little bit of a journal in the mornings or just praying out loud in my room before I start work, where I'm giving thanks for all of these amazing things that God has provided us. And sometimes it's hard to do that because things can go wrong, but having that routine has really helped me set my day off on the right foot.
I got to share one more study. I'm sorry. I know I'm just reading off this, but guys, this is from, again, some of the research Jake Namchev compiled, but 2019 meta-analysis in the Journal of Clinical Psychology found that regular prayer or gratitude practices reduced perceived stress by 20 to 25% and anxiety symptoms by 15 to 20%. A 2020 study showed gratitude interventions lowered cortisol levels by 15 to 20% in athletes. I mean, again, almost a quarter reduction in basal cortisol levels from just gratitude, spending time in prayer. Again, go back to Sean McGovern, one of the coaches on our staff. One of the simplest tips that he'll give, and I've heard him give it to elite athletes and CrossFit Games athletes before, is before you sit down to eat, before every meal, take 1 minute. He's like, even just 1 minute, close your eyes and just say a prayer of thanksgiving. And he's pulling it from this research. I think, Joe Jardine, our sports psychologist who works with Mayhem performance athletes too as well. He always says, what's the number one way to combat performance anxiety? And he's gratitude, that's it. He's like, try being in a performance setting and being incredibly anxious about the event. And then in your head or out loud in prayer, start going down a list of things that you're thankful for. And he goes, watch what happens to your anxiety. It's incredibly hard to be fixated on the oh no's of what might not even, what might happen or what might not happen when you're just giving thanks.
Yeah. And I think it recenters you on what matters most in life too.
Amen.
Right? Like it really like re-identifies your purpose during that time.
Yeah. And so to sum it up, it's like, if you're not doing these 6 things on a regular basis, like we say this in other contexts, but I mean it here too. It's like, I don't really care about your cold exposure or how much sauna that you're getting in, or red light therapy or the particular supplements that you're taking. Like I couldn't rattle all off in order: rhythm and routine, sleep, hydration, having healthy relationships. All these need to be the bedrock of your recovery protocols at the end of the day.
That's exactly right. These are the foundation. And if you want to layer all those other things in, you have the time, you have a sauna at home, you have a cold plunge, you could do those. But if you don't have these foundational pieces put together, then your house is going to crumble at some point.
Amen.
Yeah. All right, guys. See you next week.